Hi everyone, Ryan Smith here from Holiday Bliss. Today we're going to show you how to create the perfect holiday mantle. We're going to take you step by step through the entire process. This is definitely something you can do at home. Let's get started. Couple things to consider before we get started. Mantles can come in all shapes and sizes, so let's talk a little bit about garland first. So this garland is actually a really wide garland. It's about 22 inches wide, and we talk about width and diameter. We're actually talking about the end of the tip on one side all the way to the end of the tip on the other side. They always typically will come in a 9-foot section. This is actually two 9-foot sections. So we've got two pieces. We start in the center, connect them together, and then they go down the side and puddle on to the ground. Obviously, pre-lit is always better. And if you want to add lights, which I do recommend, that's always, a way to really illuminate the room. So you might see some of these larger lights in here. We've actually added several of these just to give it a little bit more texture and dimension. These lights can actually be bought online on our website. They're just a typical warm white 25 lights, and I think they're C7. All right, so first thing that we want to add to our garland is ribbon, and ribbon comes in all shapes and sizes. You'll notice that today we're going to actually work with about 3 different ribbons, but first of all, we're going to start with our 4-inch wide ribbon. Ribbon will come in 10 yards or 5 yards. Typically, for a garland this size, we're likely going to have to use 2 10-yard rolls, so 20 yards of ribbon. And one thing I do want to mention as we get started here, make sure that you're finding and procuring florist wire. We're going to need lots and lots of florist wire. That always works better than trying to just set something into a garland or trying to use the ornament strings that come on the ornaments. So let's get started. We're going to start with this main ribbon here, and then we're going to layer in other size and other color ribbons. So here we go. You can see we've actually started in the center here, and I've created a piece of florist wire. I just created a little pinch. I'm going to just attach that to one of the PVC branches. And the goal now is to try to make your ribbon look as natural as possible. What you don't want is a straight line of ribbon or ribbon that looks like it's pulled too taut. You actually want big, large, natural looking loops. So we're going to start on this side, and we're going to kind of go up and down in a zigzag pattern like this, not straight across. And the other thing to remember is you do not have to use florist wire as you continue the loops. You can actually use the PVC branches of the garland to actually hold the ribbon in place. And we're just going to give it a twist, and then come back out and make sure that you like the way the loop looks. All right, so we're at the end here, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what we do to create that perfect loop at the end. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to hold our ribbon just like this. We're going to fold it on the long way or the long side. So you've got your ribbon folded like that, and then you're just going to cut up like this. And that creates that perfect tailed effect, fishtail effect, that just creates a much more finished look than leaving the end of the ribbon looking like this. So this is a great long needle pine, and long needle pine adds a lot of movement. It's going to add actually a little bit of width as well. You can see what it does up here. It takes otherwise somewhat flat wreath or garland and adds a whole bunch of dimension, makes it a little bit more 3D. And that's what we're going to want to do as we move through this garland. We're going to kind of go at the zigzag again. So we're going to want to start here and kind of do the same thing that we did with the garland. That tends to be very pleasing to the human eye. We don't want things perfectly in a row. If you purchased a really good garland, you typically are able to, just use the wires that are within the base of the garland, and these stems will just kind of stick or balance right in there. If not, you can certainly use florist wire or some, other way of attaching these, but typically I've never found with a garland, especially on a mantle, they will stay in no problem by just, giving them a good pull or push into the actual wire of the original garland. Okay, so here we go. We're going to continue with the next element, and I've actually decided I want to try to pull some of the red into the garland, some of that same ribbon. And so I've gone ahead and created 2 just smaller bows that we're going to put on the end of each of these garlands. So let's go ahead and get those attached. These tails, if you use some really good ribbon, are going to have nice wire on each side. By just giving them a little bit of a fold or a kink like that, it gives it a little softer look, looks a little bit more natural. And again, a good ribbon makes all the difference, making sure that it's wired so that you can manipulate it and move it to where you want it to be. All right, so we're ready now for the weightier elements. We're talking about large pine cones, large ornaments, onions, those kinds of things. So next, let's use some of these large glitter pine cones. Fantastic for a dramatic effect. We're gonna, again, go through the garland like we have before, alternating up and down. Let's start in the middle and work our way toward the ends. And just like in nature, we don't want pine cones to be in a row. Sometimes we're going to want them to be facing to the left, other times to the right, sometimes straight on. So that's, just an important consideration as you place these throughout the garland. Okay, so next we're going to use our larger size ornaments. And these are called onions. They're velvet. And so they've got a really great texture. The term onion comes from the shape. And they just provide a lot of interest. And what we're going to do is we're going to place these in here similar to the pine cones. We don't want them to be all in a row or all kind of placed in the same way. Sometimes we might place them upside down like this. Other times we're going to place them like this, but we want that variation and interest as we go throughout the garland. So let's start with the green ones. And then once we get done with the green ones, we're going to move to a nice deep red. And just as a reminder, this is one of those situations where your florist wire is going to come in handy. You don't need a super long piece of florist wire, but just something that's going to be long enough to get deeper into the garland so that these really stay in place. Oftentimes when you buy poinsettias, they're going to come like this. This is a really high quality stem. You can see, all of the different beading, how nice and firm each of these leaves are. But obviously the stem is going to be way too long for what we want to do here with this garland, right? And so it's going to be difficult to, get that to place in there. I take a really nice wire snippers and, probably go up so you have maybe 6 to 8 inches left. And you're just going to do one snip like that. And now you've got a much shorter stem. It'll be way easier to place this into your garland. And should stick right into the base of the garland, just like some of the other stems that we've used. And there's your tip and trick as we get started on our poinsettias. All right, these are just some actual styrofoam balls. And what I've done is I've actually taken a pick, just like a normal hydrangea floral pick, and stab them into the bottom of the ball just to give us a little bit more leverage. That just holds everything in place. And I find that works really well when you're decorating a mantle or a garland because it just gives it a little extra stickiness, holding it in place a little bit versus trying to take these strings and attaching it or hoping that they're going to balance up there. So again, another tip or trick that you can use if you just want to try to keep things a little bit more secure when you're working with a garland or a wreath. Okay, so this is one of my very favorite stems. Comes in ivory, huge, color for everybody, very neutral. Also comes in red, comes in a really pretty navy blue as well. But because we're doing a garland, and even if we were doing a wreath, this is a little bit too long and a little bit too big to actually apply to a garland of this size. And this is a pretty large garland. So what I typically will do then is take this and create 2 pieces out of the one stem. So if you, bend right here, you would cut, and then again right here. That creates 2 pieces that we're going to use and again apply to this garland. So I'm trying to bring in a little bit more of this champagne platinum color, and with that I found this leaf that's got a great sparkle to it, and I think it will just start to pick up some of the color that we have here in the pine cone. And every project should have some sort of either rounded leaf or jagged leaf, but bay leaves, locusts, honey locusts, any of those types of leaves are going to be great just to bring in more texture, more depth, and we're going to apply in the same technique all the way through the entire project. All right, I stepped back a few times and I realized that I want to bring in a little bit more gold, and the way to do that is to add a nice ribbon. This is really airy, it's got a mesh design on it. And I think what we're going to do is actually apply that right on top of the green. Just give it a nice little camouflage. All right, so we took a little break, spent some time stepping back and looking at everything that we had placed in the garland so far. and decided that I wasn't sure that we liked the poinsettias in here. I love a poinsettia. They look great in trees. They look great in a lot of applications, and almost always a flower of this size looks fantastic. It provides a lot of weight in a design, but we have a really airy design going on right now, and so not sure that I like how it's looking with the overall project, and we're gonna pull those out and we're gonna replace it with something else. Totally fine, totally acceptable. Sometimes that happens as you go along and you're putting together your project. Okay, so we're gonna now come in with another ornament, and we're gonna use that ornament to actually fill in a few places where we have a couple of gaps. Okay, some glass ornaments, a little bit more embellishment on them, so we're gonna want these to stay out in front a little bit. And there's actually a couple of different shapes, so we'll try to alternate the shapes. Again, we're using florist wire. That'll help us make sure that we get them on there really secure. And then finally, one little tip or trick that you're going to want to keep in mind is I've glued the tops of these ornaments on, and that works really nicely when you are applying to a garland or a wreath, because you're wanting to actually attach these deep inside the garland. And when you go to tug on the wire to install them, oftentimes the little hook will pull out. Very frustrating. So I've just dabbed a little bit of hot glue on there. That makes sure that these things are staying on super tight and you have no trouble with maybe even a young child tugging on the ornament if you have those running around your house. So I just wanted to point out, this is an assortment ornament, and oftentimes on our website you'll see that where there's 2 assorted styles or 3 assorted styles. They're priced individually, but it just means that you've got options in terms of which shape you like the best. I normally like to use all 3 if there's an assortment. We just applied the round ball ornament. There's also an onion shape and a finial shape. And so what I typically like to do is apply or add all of the same shapes so that we're making sure that we consistently apply those throughout the garland. And then we'll come back through now and we'll do the onion. So we'll do the onion and then we'll end with the finial. Okay, we're gonna add one more ornament into the mix. Every project should have a clear ornament. This one's got a little bit of matte gold etching on it, but the thing about a clear ornament is that it's gonna reflect a lot of natural light. So if you're installing near windows, it's also gonna reflect the light off of your garland lights or your wreath lights. So this is going to be our clear ornament. We're gonna add these. We're gonna try to keep them out front a little bit so that you can see them. Same exact process as the other. We're using florist wire, and we're gonna wanna connect these as far into the garland as possible and not into any of the stems that we've actually applied after the garland has been placed on the mantle, but into the garland base itself. So make sure that you're finding branches and stems of the garland itself to attach the ornaments to. All right, so we're nearing the end. I always keep finding things to add to these projects, and that's the fun of it, right? So this little crystal branch got some gold undertones to it. I thought might actually give it a little structure. You know, that's the fun. Have fun with this. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You know, there's an old adage at Christmas time, more is more. So let's add this one in. I'm really excited. I've never used this branch before. Really great structure. Like I said, got some crystallizing that's going to reflect against the light, and then some great gold undertones. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next element, these really cool acrylic beaded branches. And like I did with some of the other stems, I've actually cut them off so they're a lot longer. Just using your wire snippers, cutting them off so that we can use them as perfect size for a garland. We're going to just try to find some holes. It's getting pretty full now, which is exactly what we want. We're going to add these in. Again, great reflection. I love the little acrylic beads. They almost look like a little bit of icing. And then we are nearing the end here. So let's get these in place. All right, here we go. We're going to bring in some red. I didn't think we were going to use it, but I think we need it. I taken the step back again, and I think there's a lot of champagne, a lot of light color, and we've got red up here in the wreath, so I think we need to pull this into the garland now. So we're going to go through, we're going to add these pods. Again, really great filler for the finishing touches on any project. So let's get these added and we'll take a look. All right, every project needs a berry, whether it's a glitter berry like this, or matte berry, or metallic berry. We need to have a berry in every single project. And so you'll see I would classify these more as a pod than a berry. And so I want to come back through. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit with this champagne and make sure that we're adding a berry to this project as well. So let's get these in, and then we're going to be complete. We'll take you to the final walkthrough. Thanks so much for joining me today. I know you guys can do this at home. All of the product that you saw used here today is on our website at www.holiday-bliss.com. All the products will be linked in the bio. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.